Thank you everyone for joining. I see we have a large number of people already dialing in to this webinar. Delighted to have all of you here and talk to you about DPI for People and Planet, which I would say is a first of a kind global effort to build for people and planet using a DPI approach. And we'll unpack that in this session. I think you will hopefully go back with convinced like us on the power of digital public infrastructure to solve some of our hardest problems, especially those relating to climate and livelihoods. And our goal today is really to, as the title says, unpack the what, the why, and the how of this challenge, and hopefully inspire you and invite you to join this movement. So with that, let me get started. You have today with you a few of us who have jointly come up with this idea, if I may say so, along with other founding partners. We'll shortly have Yushi Nagano join us, who heads the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA's DXLab, which is the digital lab that works across the world. I think Nagano-san has just joined us. We have Vineet, Bhandari, and Tanushka, Vaid, who represent an organization called Center for Digital Public Infrastructure, and you will hear from them later today. I'm Varad Pande. I'm a partner at BCG, Boston Consulting Group, along with my colleague Aditya, will be with you today. So as I said, it's great to have you all here today. We'll spend some time talking through, the why and the what, and then we would love to keep a lot of time to have your questions and be able to give as specific answers as possible so that it gives you what you need to decide whether to apply for this challenge. In that spirit, the chat is now open, so you please feel free to keep putting your queries in the chat even while the presentation is going on, so that we can take the questions on at the appropriate time. Before we get started, I think just wanted to do a couple of rapid fire questions on Slido, which is firstly just getting a sense of where you guys are from. So if you could use this QR code or the Slido number and put in the city that you are in, or you are from, or you are in today, that would be great to see. Let's take 10 seconds. Fantastic. There are many more of you guys. I can see the participant list, but great to see the names coming in here of different cities. I think some people are putting it on the chat as well, but unsurprisingly, Bangalore, of course, shining through as the big one here, but great to see a representation from across various parts, especially Africa, Nairobi, Kampala, Rwanda. We've got a little bit of Europe in London and Den Haag. Before I forget, Mozambique, Malawi, Benin as well from Africa. Of course, many cities in India as well represented in this list. So it's really inspiring to see that you all have dialed in at different times of the day into this conversation. So thank you very much for that. Maybe another quick one. If we just go to the next one. You all have now heard about this challenge through some medium. That's why you're here. So just interested to hear from you. The one thing that comes to your mind when you think about this challenge. What do you feel about it? What do you know about it? What do you think about it? Just wanting to get a sense of the room before we dive in and share our perspectives. Interesting. High competition for sure. It's a global challenge. Solving for the many, absolutely. I think that's the power of DPI. Additionality, exciting, climate resilience, critical. Some important themes as well coming through on data sovereignty, confidentiality and privacy, and ultimately about solving for good. I think that's a fantastic tagline, and maybe we will steal it in the subsequent weeks if you guys don't mind. It sounds I think sums up what we are trying to achieve here. So thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. And some of you have very specific use cases already in mind. Some of you, I think, are curious about learning more. Some of you are already sort of energized to work through the details. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope this session will be worth your while. Great. Somebody asked a question whether this session will be recorded and shared. Yes, very much so. You guys are the privileged lot who are here live, but for many reasons, I think many others have expressed that they would love to get a recording of this because they're not able to join at this time. So on the website of this challenge, DPI4PP.org, this entire webinar will be made available so that you can go back and take a look if it's helpful, but also many others who have expressed interest are able to take advantage of it. Fantastic. So with that, I think it's my privilege to kick this off before I hand over to my wonderful colleagues. But just to say, this is an idea that has been some time in the making. On the left-hand side, you will see some logos of organizations who are the founding partners of this challenge, including JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agencies, DXLab, the Gates Foundation, Co-Develop, Center for Digital Public Infrastructure, and my organization, Boston Consulting Group. And very, very privileged that we have an official partnership with the COP30 presidency in Brazil, which will be hosting the COP30 Climate Summit this year in November. So there's an opportunity here for winners to actually go to Brazil, actually showcase their work there. And in addition, to also showcase their work at the Global DPI Summit, which is also earlier in November this year. So that's your founding partner group on the left-hand side. But the even more exciting thing is that over the last few months, a number of network partners from around the world have come together and are supporting this challenge. Some of these names you'll recognize globally. Some of them are regional. They cut across, multilaterals, nonprofits, civil society organizations, accelerators, and so on and so forth. And we are really delighted that this, what started as an idea amongst a few organizations, has now caught the imagination of a much larger group of partners who are now coming together to drive this in their respective ecosystems. So that's fantastic, and wanted to share that with you before we dive in. So as I said, we have short time today, but we'll try and cover a little bit of the challenge overview, introduce a little bit the DPI concept. Some of you may know it already well, but I think we have two fairly definitive authorities on the topic here today, Tanushka and Vineet, who live and breathe the DPI topic on a day-to-day basis. So they will walk us through a little bit on DPI, but also contextualize it in the context of this challenge and what kind of problem statements we are expecting or we are thinking of, and we'll take it forward from there. Before I hand over, I just wanted to say that this is really a unique opportunity to be part of a large movement. Challenges, there are many challenges which are held these days, but we argue this is a fairly unique challenge for reasons that we'll share shortly. And it's an invitation to you to be part of this larger effort. There's prize money, there's an opportunity to showcase your work, as I said, at the COP30. There is an opportunity to engage with really high quality mentors, both in the DPI domain and the climate domain. And there's an opportunity to have ongoing support beyond just this year, if your idea really stands out. And you've seen the range and the credibility of the organizations who are backing this. So really, I would say the world is your oyster on this one. With that, I would love to pass on the baton to my colleague Yushi Nagano, who heads the DXLab of JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, which is one of the founding partners of this challenge, to share some of the perspectives on how this came about and take it from there. So Nagano-san, over to you.
Sure. Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. This is Yushi Nagano from JICA headquarters, and welcome. And thank you very much for showing your very candid interest. I think this will be a great opportunity for you and for us to have a broader innovations in this climate space driven by the data and the digital public infrastructure. So potential for DPI DPG innovation in climate action is immense. And we believe, and not we that sitting on this call, but wider stakeholders started to believe in last couple of years that the DPI and the DPGs can be a critical catalyst for the climate actions. And I'm just putting on the JICA BCG research papers on the unified data highways, but there's a bunch of research and some early use cases that the data and the DPI DPGs will be the critical enablement of the climate actions going forward. And that's, I think you are the believer on that as well. And as I said, some progress, research, papers, early use cases have been happening to operationalize this agenda. And what is needed is another strong push, big bang. And enhanced adoption is yet to come, and full adoption is yet to come. We can see down the road, and I think we are the one who really make the road to explore and reach into that destination. And objective of this DPI4PP Innovation Challenge is basically threefold. One is that creating further momentum in a global around climate and DPI agenda, and which we strongly believe that can be sparked and global interest and engagement of the wider stakeholders by showcasing what is the imagination and the potential of DPI to accelerate climate actions. And through this, as we are already sitting here, and this is a very kind of the early emergence of the community, but through this, we want to start building a community of practice to really further drill down this climate and DPI actions. And then apparently, it is not showcasing kind of the mock-up and the fancy events and that sort. I think that is not the purpose. We really want to make tangible project and solutions happening. So momentum, global momentum to the community build and making project happens. And that's the three broad agenda of this challenge. And please go to the next page. And there are three key kind of elements to make this challenge quite unique and to make this challenge kind of the good opportunity for user innovators. One is that we are proud of that we are now launching the world first DPI climate focus challenge. And you are the one who really are kind of the first mover on that. And the second, and it's quite important, we think this is not a one-shot challenge ending on the COP30 in Berlin, but this is a journey. And this is the first year of journey we kick off. And we are pretty much happy that for those winners, or the semi-winners, or any participants which will be coming as a kind of the member of the community, will together make actions, projects, collaborations, so that this journey starts 2025, but will go long beyond. And third is, as I see already, and this is a little bit of consideration of the multiple stakeholders, but this will be anchored by strong ecosystem players with deep expertise. And you will see Tanushka and Vineet and some of the teams from CDPI. And there are a bunch of the strong experts around here who are ready to stand by and help you and make their hands dirty, make my hands dirty, to make things happen together with you. So those are the three key elements which differentiate our program. So I'm stopping here, back to Aditya for a little more detailing.
Thank you, Nagano-san, and really appreciate the fact that you brought out the community building piece and the fact that this is not just about superficial showcase. This is actually a multi-year journey that we are asking you to join us on. So thank you for those words of encouragement. Aditya, over to you.
Thanks, Varad. Thanks, Nagano-san. While before I get into the details of the next part of the agenda, I just want to request all the participants to please start putting their questions in the Q&A section, because we want to answer as many queries as possible and want to take all of them together at the end 20 minutes. So please request you to put all your questions in the Q&A section. I see a lot of hands going up, but would be great if you can put your questions in the Q&A section. Thank you. Okay. While we have already covered, what is the agenda and what is the concept behind this challenge, I briefly wanted to cover a few other tenets related to this challenge. So, starting with the target. So, in terms of target geographies, so we are looking for global coverage, but we have a special focus on ideas and organizations coming from the global south. In terms of target innovators, we are open to startups, well-established companies, non-profit organizations, social enterprises, academic and research institutions. The only caveat here is that you need to be from a registered entity to sort of apply for this challenge, irrespective of you being a startup or a non-profit organization or an academic or research institution. Second, touching briefly upon the evaluation criteria, and this is specifically for the application round. We are basically evaluating on four key parameters. One, alignment with the overall objective. So whether your solution contributes to the climate action through a DPI based approach. Second, feasibility in terms of whether the idea you're proposing can be deployed in the real world. Also, the functionality and the applicability of the solution you are suggesting to address the problem at hand. And also we will be looking at the overall solution approach. What sort of technical elements are you putting behind it to actually create the solution. Varad briefly touched upon the price, and what's in here for you. But just to summarize, there is a monetary support of up to $1,000 in grants, which would be given to top 5, innovators. Other than that, in kind, you will receive one-on-one mentorship support. You will receive, group mentorship support from DPI, DPG climate experts, and also business experts who can sort of help you fine tune your use cases, your value proposition. Also, beyond this, you will also get the opportunity, obviously, to qualify to present your idea in COP30 in Brazil this year. So you'll get a global exposure through this challenge. In terms of selection committee, as you have already seen, we have sort of mobilized a network of multiple partners, who are basically coming from different backgrounds. Some of them are DPI, DPG experts, some of them are, VCs, some of them are accelerators. So we are bringing this entire pool of, different experts across different functional areas to create a very holistic selection committee who can sort of, validate the right solutions to be moved to the next stages. I'll quickly, cover the timelines for the challenge also. So, in terms of application deadline, 2 weeks from now, approximately July 11th is the deadline for the application. And I would request all the participants to please submit their applications before 11th July to avoid the last minute rush. Once the application are submitted by, early August, we will be selecting top 30 to 50 innovators, and we will be providing, a group mentorship support to them throughout September. And with by end of September, we will be selecting, top 10 innovators who will basically move to the next round, wherein we will, provide them one-to-one bespoke mentoring to actually polish their solutions. Essentially, by October, we will also select top 5 innovators, and we will continue to work with these top 5 innovators to further sharpen their solution. And eventually, these 5 innovators will sort of present their pitch in COP30 in Brazil in November. The top 10 innovators will get a $20,000 grant to actually build the prototype, and the top 5 innovators will get additional $80,000 to actually, further enhance and further sort of test their solution on the ground. we have broadly touched this, but this is how the entire application funnel will look like. We will start with X number of applicants that would go down to top 30 to 50 innovators. We'll work with these innovators to essentially select the top 10 finalists who will get a $20,000 grant to actually build the prototype for their solution. And out of these 10, we will pick the 5 winners who will essentially pitch their idea in the COP30. Again, just to reiterate, the application deadline is 11th of July, and earlier the registration deadline was 27th of June. We have decided, we have received a lot of queries regarding extending this, so we are extending the registration deadline as well to 11th of July. So in summary, you can register and apply by 11th of July. Okay. We also briefly wanted to touch upon, what is the criteria we will be going to use in order to select from a large pool of applicants to a set of 30 to 50 top innovators. So briefly summarizing here, this is in detail captured in the application guide. So I will request all of you to actually go to the website and also go through the application guide in detail, but just quickly summarizing. So one, we are looking for a very sharp problem statement which has clearly defined the climate challenge you want to solve for. Second, a solution overview which essentially captures a high-level technical approach, which obviously includes DPI to solve the challenge you have identified. We are also trying to understand whether the idea has already been tested or validated in the market. On the functionality and applicability, we want to understand whether you have identified key functionalities and that are directly linked to addressing the problem at hand. And have you already identified the intended target segment, the target customer base to solve the problem? In terms of feasibility, we want to understand whether you have identified the right set of prerequisites and enablers you will need to build the solution. And lastly, in terms of team and organization, we want to understand whether the team has the necessary and diversified skill set to actually build the solution in the real world. So this is broadly what we will be looking in terms of evaluating the applications and bringing them down from an X number of application to a pool of 30 to 50 innovators. I'll take a pause here. I know, whatever content I have covered till now, you might have multiple questions. So again, the request would be to, put your questions in the Q&A section. I will now invite, Vineet and Tanushka from CDPI team to walk you through the DPI, the basics of DPI and what it means for this challenge.
Yeah, maybe
over to you, Vineet.
I was going to say, Tanushka, I'll hand over to you. Some of your questions on the nitty-gritty, I think, will get answered. But I think, Aditya, maybe let's take a few minutes at the end on some of the administrative points. So, for example, I think, to participate, it's a two-step process. You first need to register, and then you will get a link, and then you can fill the application form. Some of you who have already registered will be happy to note that the application form is now live for the last few days. So please go ahead and start filling up the application form. Many of you have already started doing that, which is fantastic to see. And we'll do a quick recap of the admin at the end as well, after we go through this section. Sure. Tanushka, over to you.
Super. Thank you. And lovely to see the responses and so many people who feel reasonably confident in their understanding of DPI. That's lovely. Maybe for those who are new to the space, when we say DPI, I guess one phrase to just think about it, if you strip away all the jargon, is to look at DPI as inclusive digitization. So very often, particularly in developing economies, when you say I'm digitizing something or access to this product or services now through the internet, for many people, and particularly last mile societies, that product or service becomes out of reach. They're not able to access it. They might not have smartphone knowledge. They might not have the ability to have high-speed internet connection or data reliability. Government departments themselves at a local level, at a state level, they might not have the technical capabilities at the back end to be able to have robust end-to-end systems. And so DPI is a way to look at the whole approach of digitization and say, can we make it inclusive? Some of the principles that drive DPI, and now this is useful if you are looking at a system in your country and asking, is this DPI or is this digital? This is a helpful list to do a quick check and see, does this operate as digital public infrastructure? As well as for those who are looking to build DPI themselves, to say, does my solution adhere to these foundational principles of what constitutes as DPI? The first one is interoperability, which means solutions are not accessible only through a single portal or window or mobile application. You can typically access them through multiple channels, whether it is a feature phone, whether they are diverse smartphone-based apps. You can, for example, make a payment while having one bank account or mobile application to an individual who has another bank account or mobile application. So interoperability of systems is a key defining criteria of digital public infrastructure. The second one is to think of it as a minimal rail. So when you are building DPI or you're building on top of DPI, the DPI layer is typically solving just one niche but societal scale problem. So if you have an ID system, all your DPI is doing is giving you access to your must-have fields of information, whether that's name, date of birth, address, gender, in a way that can allow for authentication or KYC capabilities on top of it. So it's not a large end-to-end solution, but it's really just a small rail that multiple solutions can build on top of. The third one is diverse, inclusive innovation. So the reason why this challenge is possible, saying you can build on top of DPI, is because DPI offers capabilities to build on top of it. Now, these capabilities might be available at a pilot level, or they might be available only to established regulated entities at a more mature stage of their journey, which is why if you're not able to connect to DPI that's live in a country due to regulatory hurdles, you could connect to DPGs that are associated with the DPI, which typically offer their own sandboxes for you to be able to play out and understand and get a touch and feel of the infrastructure. A core aspect is making sure that all the data that is generated in the process is federated and decentralized. So keeping security and privacy at the heart of whatever you build, and actively advocating and emphasizing how that security and privacy by design has been incorporated is going to be one of the defining aspects of this challenge. We can go to the next slide. This now talks about what these principles can look like in manifestation. So what are some of the DPI that you can build on top of? The first one is identities or registries. So you might have a farmer ID in your country. You might have a national ID in your country. You might be generating, say, an ID card for green energy providers as part of your digital solution. So any of those ID systems you can either build on top of, or if you are already generating some identifier, you can convert that identifier into a DPI. Same for registries. So you might have access to registries in your country, for example, of all the discoms or power generating agencies in your country. You might have a registry that talks about students who are recently graduating from a particular school and so are looking out for scholarships to build climate-focused startups. Or you might have a database yourself, which has the list of all EV providers. And so you can convert that locked-in database into a digital public infrastructure registry by opening up APIs to allow for reuse. So in identities or registries, you can either use existing IDs, both foundational or functional, or registries, or you can build your own ID and registries depending on your nature of work. Payments infrastructure looks at not just peer-to-peer payment networks, for example, UPI in India or Pix in Brazil, but it also very importantly looks at government-to-person transfers. So to say, in the face of a climate-related disaster, is the government able to securely transfer benefits to individuals who are most affected by it? So either building those rails, or if they exist, building on top of it would constitute as payments. Data sharing and credentials are one of the easiest building blocks for those who are unsure of where to start off with. Credentials are simply the insertion of a cryptographically signed, digitally signed QR code into any document, license, or certificate your organization is issuing. So you could be issuing farmer certificates, you could be issuing a certificate that signifies green energy compliance, or you could be having a carbon credit system that gives a certificate saying your emissions were below a certain level. All of those can be made into tamper-proof, digitally verifiable credentials as a DPI. And in situations where they exist, they could act as feeder documents to help streamline and smoothen your own process. Trust infrastructure is a combination of PKIs, e-signatures, like the ability to e-sign a document using an ID authentication or some other mechanism, digital consent frameworks, and so on. And discovery and fulfillment, which is also a powerful building block for the climate space in particular, allows for the creation of an open network where multiple providers, they could be energy providers, they could be education providers, education related to climate providers, they could be funders, are able to connect with seekers of that service. So startups who are looking for funding, individuals and households that are looking to transition to a green energy provider, any of those can be created through discovery and fulfillment networks. Next. When digital public infrastructure is not available for you to be able to directly connect to it, digital public goods act as your middle layer to help you understand how it would be to connect to DPI that is live and demonstrate your proof of concept. There is a list of what we call DPGs for DPI, which means DPGs that support DPI to be able to be built and integrated with your solutions to demonstrate proof of concept. Vineet?
Super. Thanks, Tanushka. And I think for now, in the past 3 or 4 slides, Tanushka has given you a very rapid overview of what DPI is and what DPGs are and how you can actually build. I think in the next couple of slides, what we are going to talk you through is, having sort of learned what DPIs are and DPGs they can use, how can you actually apply them to this particular challenge and in the work that you're trying to. And the idea of these slides, before I get into this, is to actually just bring this to life for you rather than actually give you tangible ideas on what to actually do. So think of this as inspiration and trying to unpack this challenge a little bit further for you. So according to us, I think there are 3 approaches you can potentially take to apply and think of solutions under the challenge. Number 1, if there is a DPI that's already operational in your country, or is in the works, right? So you could think of PIX or UPI or prompt pay and so on. It could be ID based as well. So Philsys in Philippines, FIDA in Ethiopia, Aadhaar in India, and so on and so forth. Or for instance, open networks, right? So KUSA is an interesting one, which is in Kenya, where the network that works with the farmers through rural entrepreneurs that can be used and is powered by Beacon protocol. So you can use any of the existing DPIs within your country and build on top of them. That's sort of your first sort of option, if that's actually available to you. And there is a list of sort of DPIs available. There's some sources online that you can look up, and I think on the challenge website again there are several of these that are referenced. So it's an easy start from there. You will be surprised as to the number of sort of DPI sort of blocks that are available in your country. So I would not discount this category. The second one is that in case you're in a country where you say, hey, I'm sitting here, but DPIs don't exist in my country, because typically DPIs are actually created by governments, right? Quite typically, right? And in case you don't see anything right now, as Tanushka was saying, there are a few DPGs that have been identified that can be used to build solutions, right? And you saw those examples on the previous slide, such as Moja Loop or OpenSPP and so on. And these vary based on the functionalities that they're able to offer. So some of these are registries, some of them are sort of foundational identity, can be used to create foundational identity systems, could be used to create payment systems, and so on and so forth. So you could actually use these sort of DPGs, build your solution on top of that. Or you can also work backwards, right? Sometimes you're creating a climate solution, and you know what, you need to create as Tanushka was saying, a registry of different EV providers, for instance, or charging stations, right? So when you are creating a registry, can you actually look at the existing registries, DPGs that offer those as the solution, right? So that could be an approach. And then the last one is perhaps the most interesting one, and I think there are a couple of references to this in the chat as well, which is that it is possible that you are trying to create something that's does not fit the mold of the first two. But there isn't an existing DPI in the country, nor does there's a DPG that fits with that. So maybe you're trying to do something that's completely new, right? We would encourage you to still apply and apply the DPI principles to your solution. So for instance, you might be a fintech or an ag tech, for instance, right? That is working on, I don't know, climate index insurance in a country, and you've actually now reached a substantial amount level of penetration in the country. You will now have a registry of farmers in your database, right? You might also have some climate data available because you're now creating that index product, right? So can you actually create open API? Can you create APIs on that registry and open that up, right? Because then, as one of the principles that Tanushka shares around reusability and interoperability, right? Can you open your registry up for other people to innovate, right? And that way you're taking your solution and applying DPI principles, the 5 that Tanushka had shared initially, back to them. So that could be the third category. That's sort of the headline, which is that there are 3 broad approaches that are possible. And we've kept this fairly wide to get as many applications as possible. I think the key that we are looking for is a hard problem statement that you are trying to tackle through the DPI approach in the climate space, and a willingness to go forward. And we will work with you to actually mentor and offer support if there are technical gaps that we see. On the next page, again, what you've seen so far, for instance, is what are sort of theoretical approaches around what you could do. This one and the next page tries to capture how can we actually apply this to a few climate challenges. Again, these are meant to be inspirational. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list and so on. And there are a few ones here that are marked as red, which we'll talk through in the next slide. And I'll ask Aditya to maybe jump to this one, given I'm cognizant of time. If you go to the next one, you will see that we've tried to unpack what you could potentially do, right? So let's take the very first one, right? Renewable energy credentialing, right? So for instance, maybe you're working in the renewable energy space and you want to actually provide tamper-proof evidence of renewable energy generation, right, in your country, so that the provider, the generator, can actually avail subsidy, for instance. A simple build, for instance, of that is you actually take the DPI called ING, DPG called ING, for instance, which is a verifiable credentials block that you can use to actually cryptographically sign and certify that renewable energy provider. Right? So that sort of makes it tamper-proof, and then that can be used in many other places. If you go a little bit further, if you look at the one on the anticipatory aid, right? Now, again, anticipatory aid is one of those new innovative solutions that are coming up. Can you actually help support citizens who might be affected by climate disasters ahead of the disasters, right? So you need to identify them and then actually make a payment to them as well. So it might require you sort of use an identification block and sort of a G2P payment block as well. So that's another example of how those two things can come together. Then there are sort of other ones as well on the page that will probably start to get complicated a little bit further. For instance, if you think of the forest health monitoring or the sustainable urban mobility stack, essentially these are stacks of data that have been put together, right? So the stacks, for instance, in the forest case, you have the geospatial data essentially available, you have tree inventory available, you have environmental data available, right? And because all of that data is actually available to you through open APIs, now you can actually create citizen-facing or even sort of intermediary solutions to actually tackle any climate changes, such as, say for instance, deforestation. And the last one I'll quickly touch upon is the grid scale demand flexibility. This is Tanushka started talking about this, right? Which is, we are moving to a world where every household will start to become a producer of energy. and the same household will also be a consumer of energy, right? And we will have multiple electric chargers who will then start to actually become. So instead of envisaging a system in which we create an app, a platform, for instance, for some of these charging points and so on, can we actually create a discovery network where all of these consumers and producers can actually come together seamlessly? So that could be another idea where you can use something called a beacon protocol that powers the unified energy interface to actually apply that in your country. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought. We'll pause here and take the rest of the time for questions.
Thanks a lot, Tanushka and Vineet. We will now open the floor for questions. We already have a long list of questions, so I'll go through them one by one and try to answer all of your queries. So our first question.
Maybe
sure.
Before you dive into specifics, I just wanted to just glancing through the questions. So maybe one or two broad points I wanted to make was that as you saw from the examples that Tanushka and Vineet shared, we are trying to have a broad tent approach, by which we mean that we are taking a wide view of both what we mean by climate related problems and what we mean by build using a DPI approach, right? We recognize this, we are in a very early stage of this journey of DPI and climate. And the objective really is to see how creative people can be with ideas, right? And therefore, Vineet showed you the three types of, when we say build DPI approach, what are the three types of things, all are eligible. Similarly, you saw 8 different spaces on the climate. When you say climate or people and planet, all of those are fine. We are not being very prescriptive around which use cases are more important or less, because that's not the point at this stage. I think what will really matter is how innovative your solution is, how well it leverages the DPI approach in one of the ways described, and of course, also as we go through this challenge and to shortlist the impact potential that it could have if it scales. So I think just to reiterate the point that don't be hindered by very specific, precise things. These were shared as examples, and keep your creative hat on and think broadly about this.
Yeah, and if I can make one more broad point before we get to questions, I think there are a number of these questions around, do I need one DPI block or multiple DPI block, multiple DPGs and so on? Again, very open, as Varad said, to your ideas and how you use, but we're not assigning sort of weightages to one block or multiple blocks and so on. I think it's the entirety of your solution and the proposal that matters.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vineet. So I'll take questions one by one. So we have a question from Kumari S. Has the application procedure already begun? In fact, yes. So we went live with the applications on 18th of June, and the applications are open till 21st of July. So I would request everyone to sort of start the application process, and let's not wait for the last minute, because there can be rush at the last minute. So the applications are live, and you can actually log in using your credentials to actually start the application. If a startup is very early stage with only one founder, are they allowed to participate in this challenge? Yes, early stage startups are allowed, but individuals must apply on a behalf of a legally registered organization. That is the only caveat. Other than that, whether you are a startup, a non-government organization, or affiliated to a academic institution, we welcome solutions from all the different bodies. But the only caveat is you must be belong to a legally registered organization. What would be an ideal platform to share the idea for feedback and to understand the potential to develop it? So unfortunately, given the scale of this challenge, we won't be able to provide one-on-one feedback, at least for the application stage ideas. But as you progress through the first round and the second round, you will be provided, one-on-one mentorship, group mentorship to actually polish your solutions across different dimensions, business angle, technical angle. So once you sort of make it to top 30 to 50 list of top innovators, you will start getting dedicated mentorship to actually polish your idea and solution. Important dates, please. So the most important date as of now is the application date. The applications will close at 11th of July. So I would request everyone to sort of start their applications as soon as possible. Is the challenge only for climate related solution or anything health, solid waste management, sanitation? So as you understand, right, the challenge is DPI for people and planet. And as Varad also mentioned, we want to keep the umbrella a little open here. So we encourage solutions which are, in the adjacencies such as solid waste management, sanitations, health. So we welcome solutions from these domains as well. What are the maximum people per participant group? So there is currently no cap. As we mentioned earlier, the only sort of criteria is you must belong to a registered organization, and you can have n number of people in your team. In the application form, we have provided you can add up to 4 individuals who are part of your core team. So you can add details for 4 individuals, but as such there is no cap in terms of number of individuals. If we are registered with MSME Udyam, are we allowed to participate? Yes, as long as you are a legally registered organizations, you are okay to apply. Which stage of startup and product would be eligible? As we mentioned, right, any stage is allowed, from idea stage to existing solutions that can be enhanced using the DPI based approach. So, whether you are in the ideation stage or you have already tested your solution in the market, the challenge is open across the spectrum. Okay. Does the challenge cover solutions that address impact of climate change, addressing conflicts related to human and wildlife? While these issues are not solutions in addressing the climate change, they are more related to impact of climate change. Yes, the challenge allows solution that addresses climate impacts, including conflicts between human and wildlife, as long as they benefit, the broader theme, which is people and planet.
Yeah. I think on this one, I'll just say, Aditya, you should make a clear case why this is both, why is it a climate related use case, right? So you can argue that human wildlife conflict, let's take that as an example, right, is getting exacerbated because climate change is causing further land degradation and reduction in forest area and so on and so forth. So I think just make the link clear and make the impact case of your solution clear. That would really help.
Thanks, Varad. If an applicant already has a deployed or a modular solution, for example, in traceability of digital passport, product passport, what level of adaptation or localization is expected for the round 2? So I think at least from an application standpoint, we are not indexing very heavily on prototype build. So, but as we progress along round 1 and round 2, you will be provided dedicated support to actually build the prototypes, and you will be also provided, grants $20,000 to top 10 applicants to actually build and deploy their prototypes. If access to live DPI stacks is limited, will teams selected be supported in setting up? Yes, definitely. The guidance would be, provided from the experts in this space to build the prototypes. In case access to live DPI stacks is limited, you can in fact use dummy data or sandbox environments to actually build the solutions. So having access to DPI stacks is not a constraint. The only thing is, wherever possible, we should try to use the existing DPI infrastructure. If DPI infrastructure is not available, maybe DPGs for DPI. And if that is not available, like Vineet mentioned, we are also open to, you figuring out what sort of DPIs would be required for your problem statement. there is another question whether we want to sort of have all the 5 DPI elements in our solution. No, that's not necessary. Using even a single element is okay as far as your solution covers is addressing a core problem at hand using the DPI principles. I think more or less, we have answered the different questions. The questions are repeating across these different themes. What we'll do is that, we will obviously put the link of this Q&A, the link of this session on our website. Also, you can refer in detail to the DPI, the challenge guide, which is already posted on the website. And you will find detailed FAQs and the use cases which we were talking about today are also mentioned there. So please.
Here, one thing.
Sorry.
I think Phil has sent like 8-9 questions in the chat. It might be good if we can pick up some of those.
Sure.
He did it in the chat and not in the Q&A. I think that's how it got missed.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. I'm just looking for. So Phil has, yes, in fact, Phil has asked 4 questions. Tanushka, do you want to take this?
Sure, I'll ask the question out loud, and I think the first one Varad might be able to answer. Is there an expected or target split between Global South and Global North solutions selected for mentorship and funding?
Yeah, I think I don't think we have any quotas. Okay, I think as it says in the application guide very clearly, we are looking for solutions from everywhere, but we have a preference that the geography of impact should be the Global South. So do keep that in mind, and that's why, to be very honest, we are focusing a lot of our outreach efforts on Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So while there is no quota or anything like that in our mind, Global South as a geography of impact would be preferable.
I think one other common question is, are grants given to all 50 startups? And the answer is no.
I clarified that in the chat. I think some of these, just answering on the chat also. Top 50 will get group mentorship support. Top 10 will get individual mentorship to further shape their ideas and dollar grants. And then the top 5 will get higher dollar grants and the opportunity to present at COP30.
Do we offer matchmaking and facilitation services to help Global North innovators partner with Global South ministries or NGOs?
It's a really good idea. I think, as we said, this is really a first step of the journey where we are trying to discover innovations. I think this platform, if I may use the word for DPI for People and Planet, can take various forms next year. And it could, I think Nagano-san was referring to this in his opening remarks. There are many possibilities, and matchmaking really good ideas with partners is a very real possibility, especially because the organizations whose logos you see on the left are deeply committed and invested in the DPI agenda. So I think you will see a lot of that happening in the future. Right now, we are very focused on getting as many interesting, innovative ideas as possible from as wide range of countries and see what really bubbles up. There were some technical questions I think Phil had. I don't know, Tanushka, Vineet, if you wanted to address some of them.
Yeah, one second. I just have to scroll and find them. What level of technology readiness is expected or preferred at the application stage? Are early stage concepts with strong DPI alignments equally competitive with solutions already piloted or deployed? Vineet, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, as Aditya had mentioned, what we are looking for at this point is prototypes, ultimately, that we will be able to build. So that's sort of the criteria. I think there's another question later on around how mature the solution need to be. I think obviously, I think what we are looking for is feasibility, right? We're not just looking for ideas, and we're looking for how feasible the solution might be. So if it's an early stage idea and you strongly feel this is feasible, I think do explain that, I think, in the application, and that will be considered appropriately.
Lovely. There's another question on whether data sharing and trust infrastructure as pillars of DPI are equally competitive as others. And yes, of course, all DPI pillars are equally valuable, and there's no preference on whether you use one DPI pillar or 2 or 3. Given the focus on inclusion, can backend systems such as providing privacy, preserving traceability, and data verification layers be equally competitive? Yes. DPI very often is just building the foundational rails that operate at the backend, and very often user interaction happens through market applications built on top. So yes, backend systems are equally competitive.
I think there are a couple of, I can take the one or two and you're reading. I think there are a couple of questions that specifically ask for, there's a traceability question and a livestock question and so on. I think it'll be unfair to actually comment on each idea itself on part of the call, but I think what the principle to keep in mind is that as long as you are aligned with sort of the DPI thinking, right? So if there are registries, they are actually registries that are open and have APIs so that others can also access that data and are actively doing so. That does qualify, right? Because that applies, meets the DPI guidelines. If you are using a DPG, that's almost always, in more often than not, will become the case that these things become reusable, become interoperable by design. So that also does qualify. And if you're actually creating something custom, whether that's a credential, whether that's a registry and so on, like I said, as long as you comply with the principles, I think that should be okay.
Fantastic. Any parting words of advice, Tanushka, Vineet, Aditya?
I think maybe just that I know that DPI can sound complicated or overwhelming, but if you strip away the jargon and the details, and that's why we've tried to keep this challenge very open to make sure that it is easily understandable and accessible. Just think of it as inclusive digitization. There are many resources available that do DPI 101s, DPG 101s, and explain it in super basic lifecycle formats. Do try to understand, reach out to us if you have any specific questions, but just see how it can seamlessly fit into your current goals and narratives and innovations and help you accelerate your work and make sure that is able to scale not just at a national level, but hopefully someday at an international level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just say start from your problem. Don't start from which DPI building block or tech you can use. If your solution uses any technology, or perhaps even does not use any technology, there's definitely some space for DPI thinking to be applied, and you'll be surprised to see how easy that potentially can be. So start from the solution and look for sort of opportunities to apply DPI thinking there.
Thanks a lot. Yes, thanks a lot, Tanushka, Vineet. I would just want to, also mention few things to look out for. So in case I'm pretty sure we would not have been able to answer all your queries. So please send your queries at info@dpi4pp.org. We will make sure that your query is addressed there. Also, keep an eye on the DPI for PP website. We will be putting curated, DPI resources on the website for your reference. Also follow our LinkedIn page for regular updates. And the last, I have reiterated this multiple times, but please complete your application before the 11th July to avoid the last minute rush. And given we were talking about advice, we just wanted to play a small video from pioneers of DPI in India, where they have provided some advice to the participants. So
I think startups and innovators should look at real-world problems, real-world issues, come up with specific solutions on the ground, design them with DPI thinking so that they're scalable, and actually implement some of it to show proof of concept, but in a way that they can be scaled up very rapidly. these are some of the tips I would have for innovators.
My advice to the participants would be, first of all, to think small and make baby steps towards a larger solution, because it's very daunting to think about the entire solution at one space. That's precisely where the DPI thinking comes in handy as well, because DPI is all about building blocks, one building block at a time, and creating combinatorial possibilities later. And most important, I would actually, from my experience, I would tell you, what works at scale is very different from scaling what works. That means while you think about the small problem, and it might work for you, when you have a cohort of 1,000 people, suddenly falls apart at planet scale. So you have to think from day one in the design what works at scale, and try that in a small factor and then a small way, and then keep going.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I think just to say that we will do possibly one more webinar in the next few days. So if you have unanswered questions, you're welcome to join that too. But we'll try and do it in a time zone which is more for the Western Hemisphere as well. But thank you so much. And I hope this session inspired some of you to take the plunge. And we look forward to reading your applications very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.